It's time for the first banner of 2024, technically. I think it technically comes out 2023, but close enough. Either way, we did see the silhouettes. It looked like Nerthuz and male Kana. So let's jump in and see what we're dealing with. If it's like a Fates Dragon banner, or maybe we can get a Tellius Dragon in there, please, IS. Okay, up first is Nerthuz. It's not a surprise. I think everybody knew that was her, like, instantly. Okay, so we have Cute Paper Crane, and I am absolutely horrified by this preference weapon already. So we have Canto 2, we have Slaying, and then if her HP is greater than 25%, she's going to get stats, essentially, right? She's going to get X stats of, based off her max special cooldown, times 2 plus 5. So up to 13, because she has Slaying. She'll also have full no follow-up, and this is where I'm absolutely and utterly horrified. She gets 25% flat damage reduction based off her speed, and it works with Brave hits. Now... Oh my god, IS. I've talked about this before, how like this is probably like one of the most broken effects they could ever add to the game ever. Speed is just the best stat in a lot of ways because it ensures you double with NFU, it ensures the foe doesn't double, and then when you make it so that it not only like does those effects, but it can also reduce the damage you're taking like globally, right? Because it's flat damage reduction. You just made it like a really completely broken unit. So just seeing that effect is absolutely horrifying, and it's 25%. Like it's not even 10% or like 20% like Brave Dimitri. It's 25. I don't like this. I don't like this at all. At least she doesn't have true damage based off speed, but even so, like that is just gross. The rest of the weapon is pretty much just getting that clash effect and then like the damage reduction as well. I'm already horrified. And we haven't even gotten to her new A skill, Attack Speed Wild. Okay, so what this essentially does is if the number of adjacent allies other than beast or dragons, so you can have as many beast or dragons as you want around you, is less than or equal to 1, or if the unit is transformed, so that's a really nice clause there, you get attack and speed plus 7, you get special acceleration, and you also restore 7 HP after combat. I was so excited until that last line. So like that's not a bad effect, but when you look at it at first, it seems like a Gale Force effect almost, like, right? Because you can have one unit adjacent to you and you still get this, or if you're just transformed. And so this would allow you to have special acceleration, and it would let you have, the stats. And hopefully this is, this is inheritable by calves, right? Because she is a calf. So this would give special acceleration to beast calves and let them be better in Gale Forcing. But because of the healing, that's like a pretty big downside in my opinion. Unless you're trying to use them as follow-up units, which is okay, but typically you'd want to use them as like the engaging unit. Outside of Gale Force though, this is a very powerful effect, right? You're getting stats, you're getting special acceleration, and HP. So in a way, this is like just better than Flash Sparrow, but I'm assuming this is only locked to Beast considering the icon as well as the transformation clause. Either way, very interesting new A skill. And then we also, of course, have her preference skill that she already had on her Mythic version, Fruit of Life, and Speed Smoke 4. Okay, so when it comes to roles, what does Nerthuz really want to do? She's mostly going to be a tank, though she can do other things. That 25% flat speed-based damage reduction is really, really strong, and it's going to help her to do a lot of things, right? She's going to have the cancel, she's going to be flexible, and then attack speed wild is going to give her stats and healing as well. The thing is, she won't be able to counterattack, so she will need to like probably swap that out if you want to go that route. And so it kind of puts her in an awkward situation where she really can't be the most amazing Gale Forcer because of the healing in her A slot. And then if she doesn't use that, she has to use like Heavy Blade, which isn't great either. So really, like, I'm not exactly sure where this unit will end up being used. Maybe you just swap out the A skill for something like, Prime or something like that, and then just allow her to be a tank. But either way, I don't think she has like the most defined role yet, though I think she will be just good overall and like a pretty powerful unit. When it comes to game modes, like I mentioned, I'm not exactly sure where this unit fits, because like she kind of wants to do a tanking role, but she doesn't exactly fit into there without DC. She wants to do Gale Force, but then she has healing, so she doesn't have like a really good special acceleration option. She does have anti-guard, which is very nice for Gale Force, but like, do you use Heavy Blade 4? That's not the best skill anymore. So I do think Nerthuz is kind of in a weird situation here, but I'm sure that somebody will figure out where to use her at, and she'll probably be pretty good at maybe Summoner Duels, who knows. Okay, up next is Kvasir, which is crazy. We're already getting all of Kvasir. She just came out in November. So let's start at the top with her preference weapon, Faded Paper Fan. What this essentially does is you get Slaying, and then if she initiates combat, or if she's with an ally, she's going to get plus 5 to all stats. She's going to reduce the foe's speed and resistance by 20% of her visible speed at the start of combat. She's going to half damage reduction, which is pretty strong, and then if it's her first combat, which either she initiated or the foe initiated, she'll get 70% damage reduction, and it works with Brave Hit, so pretty similar to her Mythic version. But then after combat, she's going to have a little bit of a different effect than her Mythic version, where if she initiated combat, or if she's within 2 spaces of an ally, after combat, she's going to do a Flash Smoke, essentially preventing counterattacks, right? Which in my opinion is much better than the Panic Smoke on her Mythic. So overall, pretty strong weapon already. We then have her preference special, the same as her mythic, where she's going to get 60% of the foe's attack when the special triggers. She gets anti-guard, and then it's going to have that interesting effect where she either activates Time's Gate, which allows her allies to warp to her, or she gets to dance one of her allies within 2 spaces of her with the highest HP. Kind of like doing the Brave Marianne, essentially. We then have Flash Sparrow, low speed res 4, and a new tier 4 C skill, Infantry No Follow-Up. And what this essentially does is if at the start of turn, if the unit is within 2 spaces of an ally, they themselves get no follow-up, which is pretty strong. And then they're also going to get the formation buff where they can warp to nearby allies. And then also they'll give no follow-up to any infantry allies within 2 spaces. So this is a nice little upgrade, essentially allowing it to have some functionality for the support unit themselves. I don't know if this is like the biggest upgrade, because typically you're going to be running infantry no follow-up 4 on units who are trying to act as supports, right? You don't really want to give up your C slot to have no follow-up. When you can typically get that from somebody else, you could outsource it to somebody else and run something more important, like Pledge or like all the other million C options like times before, right? So I think this is nice, but I don't think this is like a massive upgrade. Like it doesn't really change all that much. It just, makes it a little bit better and makes the support a little bit more flexible in combat. When it comes to roles, Kvasir really plays 2. She wants to be a nuke and she wants to be a support. So now when it comes to game modes, Kvasir actually has quite a few options. She still can play on Aether-Raid's defense as a tanky nuke, but she can go into Aether-Raid's offense as well and play as a Gale Force support unit, similar to Brave Marianne, right? Now the difference, of course, is that she's going to be able to do a little bit more damage than Marianne, because she does get that boosted damage from her special, but it's also a 5 cooldown special, which means it's going to be a little bit more difficult to proc. But once again, it does have an additional effect, right? That Time's Gate effect can be a big deal. Now, we're going to test this out to see how consistent this really is and how good it is. Typically, I think it's just going to act like Brave Marianne special, where it just dances an ally. But if we can find a way to consistently get Time's Gate to activate, we could possibly use this for warping, and then maybe we don't have to run Wings of Mercy on everybody on our Gale Force team, which could be interesting. So I think this unit does have quite a bit of potential to be a very powerful offensive support. Okay, our third unit is male Kana. Not much of a surprise. I think everybody was kind of expecting him to either be the free unit or to be like the D mode. Oh wow, so we have attack res scout 3 as fodder. That's pretty big. It means that you're gonna be able to like really fodder scout much more efficiently from Rhea, which is nice. Though, obviously it's not gonna be like the easiest thing to get as it is on like a limited 4-star, but even so, it's nice to see it in the game. We do also have his new inheritable weapon, Dragonstone Plus. And this is kind of an insane inheritable weapon. So if his HP is greater than 25%, you'll get +4 to all stats, and then you get flat damage reduction based off 20% of your speed, and it works against brave attacks. And then also, if your speed is greater than the foe's speed, you'll get full no follow-up, and then dragon adaptive damage. I cannot believe they put flat damage reduction based off speed on an inheritable weapon. They really are underestimating how good this really is. It's kind of scaring me a bit that IS does not understand that this is like one of the most broken effects in the entire game. I mean, this is a really good inheritable weapon. Obviously, it's it's lacking some stuff, right? You don't get like the slaying, and you're not getting as many stats or as many effects, but you are getting no fall, which can be a really big deal for units other than infantry who don't easily have access to that. And that flat damage reduction is insane. Like, that's such a good effect. So I think this is actually a pretty strong inheritable weapon. Probably not quite as strong as an arcane weapon, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe flat damage reduction is so good that this inheritable weapon is just broken. Okay, with that said, let's move on to our final unit of the banner. Is it going to be a duo or harmonic? Okay, the final unit of the banner is Seidr and Hathor. I don't think anyone's surprised by this. Everybody saw this one coming. Though some people thought it would be a trio with Golveg. Okay, let's start at the top with Goddess Tamari, her preference weapon. So we have Slaying, and then on turn 2 and onwards, she'll get Canto 1. And then also at start of turn, if her HP is greater than or equal to 25%, she'll give out a visible attack and res +6 to herself and allies within 2 spaces, and also the follow-up denial visible bonus. And then once again, if her HP is greater than or equal to 25%, she'll get +5 to all stats during combat, and then she'll get an additional attack, speed, defense, and res +X, where X equals the turn number times 2 for a max of 8. So that's kind of nuts. She can get up to +13 to all stats. On turn 3 and onwards, she gets additional true damage based off of Y. Y equals the highest total bonuses among herself and allies within 2 spaces. So this is essentially like treachery, but like, it also can be outsourced to your allies, so that's very powerful. And then on turn 4 and onwards, if she initiates combat and her res is greater than the foe's res +5, she gets a brave effect, which is really, really scary. Now, these are all based off which turn it is, but if the opponent has Time's Grip active on them, which is a new debuff she can cause, or if Time's Gate is active on the unit, the turn order immediately counts as 4. which means that she'll get all these effects essentially. So this is very, very powerful preference weapon already, though it is like pretty convoluted and complex. There's a lot of effects going on and they're not all active at the same time, unless she can just, you know, activate her debuff, which she probably will when we get to her new preference skill. And then we have a tier 4 version of Sabotage Speed and Resistance 3, so nothing really too big here, but that is a nice little thing to see added to the game, you know, completing some skill families. But then we have Future Sighted, the Preference C skill. And what this essentially does is it's similar to Mythic Seidr's ability, where after the foe's start of turn skills trigger, so like after like Time's Pulse and all those different effects go off, the closest foe will do a res check against Seidr, and if she wins that res check, and Time's Grip is not active on that foe already, their action gets ended immediately, which is really powerful. We've seen how good this is on Mythic Seidr. She'll also inflict a new debuff called Time's Grip on that foe. Then also, if she's within 3 spaces of an ally, she'll get another +4 to all stats, she'll get a guaranteed follow-up attack, and she'll get 30% damage reduction against the foe's first attack. Now, Time's Grip is a new debuff, and what this essentially does is it inflicts -4 to all stats on them during combat, and it also neutralizes their skills during the allies' combats through their next action. So what this essentially means is like it will turn off like drive effects or things like that, right? So like let's say you hit Fall Maria with this, it would just completely disable Fall Maria's effects for all of her allies. Now, there may be something you might have noticed that is missing from this Preference C skill. That's right, this works on every turn. Unlike Mythic Seidr, which is only odd turns, this is every single turn. Yeah, that's completely and utterly disgustingly broken. We had talked about this when Seidr originally came out, how powerful it was to turn off foes' effects, but because it was only odd turns, and Seidr herself wasn't like the most insane unit outside of like Aetherite's offense really, it wasn't that big of a deal. But now we have this new duo Seidr, and this is just ridiculous, right? You have a very, very powerful unit who now has one of the most powerful effects in the entire game that she can use every single turn. And not only that, like not only does it turn off the unit's turn, which by itself would be like completely and utterly just stupidly good, we now have a way to also like inflict essentially a feud effect on them where they can't even help their allies after their action's been turned off. This is just really, really disgustingly broken. Like, oh my god, I don't know what they're thinking with this one. And we haven't even seen the duo skill yet. Let's go check out the duo skill. Okay, so essentially what this duo skill does is it grants Time's Gate and then Special Acceleration to Seidr and all allies within 4 spaces for 1 turn. Now, if you don't know what Time's Gate does, this essentially is a warping effect where any of your allies can warp to that ally within 4 spaces. So Seidr gives that to everybody. So you can essentially use this like in something like Summoner Duels, and then all of your units become warp beacons. Yeah, that's gross. That's completely and utterly overpowered. This makes Duo Dagger's duo skill look like child's play, right? Now, obviously, there is one thing that is keeping us from like hell essentially, and that is Duo Thor, right? Duo Thor can turn this off immediately, and then Seidr's like back, put her back in her corner essentially. But yeah, that is ridiculously broken and overpowered. Like that is just so stupidly good. Okay, let's talk about her roles. Seidr is just the full package. She is a nuke, she is a support, right? That's the main thing she's going to be doing, and she's going to do both those things extremely well. She's going to have a ton of stats, she's going to have a brave hit, which means she can hit really, really hard. She's going to offer a ridiculous amount of support through warping, through turning off units, through debilitating those units so they can't even offer support. Like this unit just does a lot, like a really, really, like too much in my opinion. Now, the one good thing is she is a flyer, which means she doesn't really have easy access to like damage reduction piercing. Oh wait, I forgot, Legendary Camilla just came out last week. Never mind. Holy crap. So like you can do everything with this unit, right? You could go and put like a Cultist Strike on her, get additional true damage on her, so she's doing even more damage, and then you could like pair her up with Camilla. She's getting through damage reduction. She's allowing everybody to warp around. Like this unit is just completely and utterly disgusting. Now, at least her preference skill is in her C slot, which means she can't run Guidance 4 typically, right? Like she can't use it all the time. But even so, having 1 turn of like super warping is really, really powerful. And a lot of times that's going to be enough to have like a deciding match essentially in Summer Duels, right? That turn can decide the entire match just by how powerful of an effect this can be. Also, it means that positioning is going to become way more important in Summer Duels, because if she's lined up with the unit, she's going to turn them off. Meaning if you try to go for like a more stally team, a more slow team, she's going to be able to just snipe somebody, turn them off because she has extremely high resistance, right? So you're in a situation where you either have to have units with really high resistance so that they don't get hit by it, or you're going to have to decide which unit you want their action to get turned off. Which is just, it's disgusting. It's so gross. Like, I can't even like put it into words how disgusted I am by this unit. Now, when it comes to game modes, where can she dominate, in my opinion? She's going to be really good in Aethery's offense, and she's going to be really good in summon rules. The reason for that is really simple. In Aethery's offense, she can just turn off people's actions, which means you can just stop units from like essentially being annoying, right? Like, let's say you're running into a team that has like Fallen Maria, you just turn off Fallen Maria and turn off a Miracle, right? Like, just easy done. Or if you're up against a cav line and there's a unit you don't want to deal with, like let's say, I don't know, like Sanaki maybe, you could just turn off Sanaki, right? And then you have to deal with her. So like, there's definitely just a lot of ways to use her when it comes to Aethery's offense. And then when it comes to summoner duels, right, like I just mentioned, she's going to be like a positioning queen where she can just turn off enemies, like foes on the enemy team, while offering ridiculous support, while being able to nuke things. Like, this unit is just disgustingly good. When it comes to Aethery's defense, it's possible that she could fit in there too, but I do think that she's not going to shine there quite as much as in other game modes. And the reason for that is because you don't get to control which unit's being turned off, right? It's kind of like more, does your foe screw up and put a unit in that like column, which, you know, it does happen, but not always. Either way, I just expect to see a lot of this unit everywhere. She's just completely and utterly busted, and I don't know what IS is thinking at this point with this amount of power creep. Okay, let's move on to the final part of the video, should you pool? So when it comes to the pros, like obviously you have just a broken unit on this banner. Duo Seidr is just disgustingly good, like ridiculously disgustingly good. So I do think there are some really good, powerful units here. There's lots of power creep. There's a lot of meta, skills going around here. So I do think that is one good reason to pool. So if you are a very competitive, like Summoner Duels player, maybe that is something you consider. There also is some pretty solid fodder here as well, which is nice. Now, unfortunately, when it does come to this banner does not have sparks for everyone, which is a big downside. Only Fay Pass subscribers are going to be able to spark here, which really sucks, and it honestly makes it a lot less inviting to summon on. Also, we do have like a lot of good banners up right now, right? Like we have the winter banner with 4 sparks available to everyone. We have the legendary Camelo banner with a very powerful support there. We also have the anniversary coming up soon, and we have a new heroes banner coming out like in a week or 2 as well. Like the banners just won't stop. So there are a lot of reasons not to pull here. And honestly, if you aren't like a super hardcore like meta player, then maybe you don't need these units as much. But if you are a hardcore meta player, there might be a reason to pull here because this is some disgusting power creep, to be honest, and I'm not a fan of it. With all that said, I'd love to hear from you. What do you think of this banner? What do you think of these units? Do you think IS is just going way too far with power creep, or do you think this is just fine? I would love to hear about that, so make sure to drop a comment down below letting me know. As always, I'd like to thank all my members for their constant support. This has been Oblivion. I'll catch y'all later with more Fire Emblem Heroes.